All right, everybody, back with another one. Today, we're going to take a look at a little bit about the Super Bowl yesterday, the infamous halftime show that everybody is talking about with, I believe, yeah, I want to say his name is Bad Bunny. Not totally sure about that. I don't really follow a lot of the new music today, but, his name has floated around a lot recently because of everybody sort of being, upset about this whole Super Bowl halftime show thing. And we're going to discuss that today. We're going to take a little bit of a different angle than what most people on the internet are saying, even on the conservative side. And we're just going to look at really, not in a long episode today, in more of a shorter one, we're going to look at what's going on overall in the landscape of things and what is happening to the culture in this country. And I'm going to sort of break it down as a split between two different directions where America is headed culturally. And we'll just sort of, take a look at that. From a bird's eye view in the different segments of society, and hopefully it'll help paint a little bit more of a picture as to what's going on culturally in this country and maybe why there's so much pushback for some of the stuff that goes on today, like the Super Bowl halftime show. But before we get into that, just wanted to make a couple of announcements and things like that for the podcast. So if you haven't seen any of the, recent episodes, take a look. We've had some great episodes on, deeper dives into some biblical stuff with the story of Noah and looking at the, world history as a whole, and sort of going through like a lineage of where did everybody come from in the world? What does this all go back to? And why does the landscape of the world look like this today? Now, it wasn't super in depth, but definitely paints a picture as to exactly those questions, and it goes back to the Bible, the story in Genesis of Noah and his family. So we broke that up into a couple different episodes. Definitely some great episodes to watch, and it ties into some modern day discoveries that have been more recently discovered and continue to be examined, and may likely become confirmed as true. It's just a theory right now based on my research and based on just thinking freely and connecting the dots, but not in like a conspiratorial way, just more in a way of observing life and connecting the possibilities of this historical landscape, tying it back into the Bible. Make a lot of great points in those videos and would love to hear what you think about them. If you want to, comment on those videos, definitely go check them out. Definitely go share them with people too who you think might, find value in them. And take a look at some of the recent interview videos we did. Our special guest, Anthony Volpe, jumped on a few of these, and we have some great videos out there, everything from taking a look at the trades, the plumbing industry, careers, different things like that. I'll be definitely expanding on those topics in the future because I think it's very needed. And there's a lot of not disinformation, but just a lot of different opinions on the internet about you know jobs and careers and ways to make money and things like that. So we take a look at this as a little bit of a different perspective. But I'll be diving more into those topics in the future as well as we expand into making more videos on different topics like business and health and things like that. But a lot of these videos tend to be currently focused on political things or biblical spiritual things, historical things, but we're going to expand a little bit more soon into other topics just to cover more ground and hopefully provide content and takes on things that maybe are a little bit different perspective than what's currently floating around on the internet. Sometimes it seems like a little bit of an echo chamber on the internet where people just seem to be parroting each other and saying the same ideas, just maybe putting their take on it, their spin on it, or just adding to an idea that somebody else had to, sort of steal that for their content, which does happen in this industry as well. But we're trying to keep things really unique here. And obviously, not totally unique because they also say there's no, nothing new under the sun, which I'm not sure how much I actually believe that, but there is some validity to it. So, not to be long-winded, but we try to be unique here on this channel. So, if you're looking for a different perspective, different takes on things, definitely subscribe to the channel. It definitely helps you, continue to see the content that we put out come up on your feed. Don't forget to hit the notifications thing too, because it also allows it to pop up on your notifications. It doesn't just mean on your actual phone, where sometimes you'll get the notification on your drop down curtain. That kind of annoys me, so I tend to have those off. But if you use an app like YouTube or something, it'll pop up on the little bell in the corner. So you can actually click on that and see the channels that you follow, the most current content that they put out. So if you don't always want to have pop-ups on your phone, you could still go see the newest content that's on the notifications section on your YouTube account, for example, and you could see our content there in that section neatly organized and waiting for you when you're ready to go tune into YouTube, not always have it, bells and whistles going off on your phone all the time. That's another topic I'm going to talk about too in the future is cutting back on social media, getting away from a lot of that stuff as we go into this next chapter of America post 250 and getting more into reading books again, which is another thing that I mentioned, fairly recently that I'm doing book reviews and I'm, not going into like deep dives on book reviews and not really giving away and exposing all of which is in these books because I wouldn't want to take someone else's art and just give it away for free if they're selling it. But I definitely think it's important to promote books again and get the younger generation to take time away from social media, take time away from their phones and constantly scrolling and seeing quick images or watching a 3 or 5 second video, which really rewires the brain in a very different way that's not good. Books are something that people need to reintegrate into their lives again, especially when you get older, you're not in school anymore. There's no requirement by the world for you to have to read. It's a choice. Most people are choosing not to read physical books anymore. So I'm trying to integrate that back into the content as well to hopefully inspire people to get that back into their lives. I've said this on this podcast before. I read all the time. A lot of my free time is spent reading books. I don't really scroll through social media. I do watch podcasts. I do occasionally go and check out what's going on in the news just to stay current on the world, or if it's about markets and investing or whatever it is. So I'm not like one of those people either who is off the grid. I think there is a way to live a balanced life, but I spend more of my free time doing things that are useful and beneficial to my learning and to my growing as a person and, building my character. And it's very beneficial. I highly recommend it to the younger generation, the older generation too, but I see that a lot of the younger people really don't do this anymore. And their attention span's waning and they're having all kinds of problems, with their, you know, mental stability. And I think a lot of that could be helped, maybe not totally solved, but helped by actually reading physical books again. If not just for the fact of reading and slowing down and, looking at words on a page without any type of light in your face, but also the stuff that you read in the books and learn could help you maybe think about the world differently and see your life and view your world and your reality in a different perspective. So, definitely be promoting more books here on this channel. I'll start with my usual, where I promote my children's book, Little Boy Full of Love, which is a children's book, obviously, that I wrote for my son. And it's a real book, published book. That's the publisher, ISBN number. That's me on the back. So it's all pretty, standard for um, children's, books and books in general. You can actually go buy this online at all the major platforms, Amazon, Walmart, Barnes& and Noble, all that stuff. but it's also in many physical bookstores throughout the country too. We're in, I believe, 20 states right now, and in multiple big bookstores in each state. So, the book is out there in physical locations as well. And I highly recommend buying it from the physical locations to support small business. So definitely check that out on my Instagram. It will show you some actual bookstores that are carrying the book. And if you live near one of them, you can actually go and just pick it up in person and help support that small business. Another thing too is, you may see this red light back here. This is an actual real red light. I could turn it on just so you could see the brightness of it. It's a really, really good one, good brand. I don't think we have this one in particular on our Amazon storefront for some of the products that we promote, but we do have some other red light items, I believe, listed on there. And these are things that we actually, buy or have bought over the years, recommend them because we've actually used them and like them, or gifted some of these things to people. But, you can find a lot of really cool, interesting stuff there, some health related stuff, which is really great too. That's another big thing that we're into. And that we talk about on this channel as well, which we're going to get more into this year of 2026, another topic we're going to expand on. But yeah, check out the Amazon storefront too. There's a lot of great products over there as well that you can purchase and then help support the podcast. And then also we have our apparel shop, as you know. But pretty much jumping into this now, we're taking a look at the situation that has been, all the talk for the last 24 hours, because yesterday was the Super Bowl, and it is the, halftime show, which it's funny because I don't think most people know this, but it's actually a fact. There's two types of ratings for the NFL. When the game is on, that's the Super Bowl. And then there's another set of ratings that is for the halftime shows. So the Super Bowl itself gets a set of ratings because, people who like football tune in to watch the game. And it's the biggest game of the year. It's the final game of the season. But there's a group of people that actually tune into the Super Bowl just to watch the halftime. And they see this because the ratings spike at certain times during the game, and they always notice that it spikes at the halftime show. And this was sort of a gimmick I think they started doing decades ago to, get more people to watch the Super Bowl because football was more of an up and coming sport. It was newer compared to a lot of the other sports that had existed, baseball and things like that, been existing for much longer. Um, so this was a way to to the Super Bowl and to football in general to get people to, like it. And it worked. But the thing is, the Super Bowl halftime show actually exceeds the Super Bowl itself ratings. So a lot of people don't know that maybe, unless you're, into football or something. But the Super Bowl halftime show usually gets like multiple millions of time, people ratings higher than the actual game itself, which means most people are just tuning into the entertainment aspect in the middle that has nothing to do with the sport itself rather. So you have a lot of people, especially women too, that maybe they're not gonna watch the game with their husband, but they'll tune in for the Super Bowl, the halftime show. Um, and now even more, you have a lot of people who will, watch it just the Super Bowl halftime show online the next day and have never even seen the game, don't know what the score is, don't know what the final was, but they'll look for the clip of the halftime show online. So it's sort of become like its own event in itself, even though it's built into the Super Bowl. But a lot of people were up in arms yesterday because, this guy, Bad Bunny, I believe his name is, was doing the halftime show. And he is not from America. I think he's from Puerto Rico, but he is an American or he's not an American. He's a Puerto Rican citizen, but maybe he lives here. I'm not totally sure. And a lot of people were upset about it because he was performing, I believe, in all Spanish, speaking and singing in Spanish only. And so, most people were upset by that because, he was appealing to an audience that's almost exclusively American in the sense that out of all the other sports in America, NHL, MLB, NBA, they all have teams that are, multinational, like they go and play in other countries. In America, the NFL is only in the NFL. There are no outside teams, in this league. So it's exclusively an American sport. In fact, a lot of other countries don't even recognize football as a sport because we call it football and they call soccer football in their country. And soccer is a much bigger, more popular sport worldwide. And so they don't even recognize football as a real sport because it's taking the name of the sport they know as football. We call it soccer, but we're the only ones who call it that. Everybody else calls soccer football in their countries. So football is really not a internationally respected sport, and it's something that really is just truly uniquely American. So a lot of people are just upset by this, because of a couple different reasons. I guess it was because the act this person is maybe not that popular as much as some other people have been throughout history, who've done the halftime shows. But also because of the language factor that he wasn't speaking American or English and performing this show for an exclusively American audience. I mean, other people can watch in other countries, online and stuff, but typically, I think the majority of the ratings for the NFL come in almost entirely through the United States. So I'm not going to talk about the, whole, language, race situation, because to me, that's really irrelevant. I'm focused more on why there was so much backlash about this. Because in America, we have so many things dedicated to other cultures here that it's pretty much common practice. I mean, you could walk through the streets of Manhattan in New York City and you could see an entire town called Chinatown that's designated to Chinese citizens. And a lot of the signs and a lot of the storefronts, the names of the business or the restaurant or whatever are in Chinese. And nobody has a problem with that. And then you have, almost every instruction manual you get from every product in America is written in English. And then there's like three or four other languages where the entire instructions manual is written in that language too, in the same product, because they know people in America don't all speak English and they're going to buy these products and they're going to need to be able to know the instructions of how to use it. So they write it in the language of as many people as they believe are going to be buying this product. A percentage of each customer is going to be of what nationality and speak what language. And a lot of times you'll see this in your, instructions. You'll see them in English and then Chinese and then Spanish and then so on. And so it's done that way, and we have it around us all the time. So, what's the backlash? Why are so many people upset by somebody singing in their native language, Spanish, at the Super Bowl halftime show? Well, it's not, in my opinion, so much about that. It's more focused on what's happening to the culture in America today. Now, I think it's this simple. The culture is splitting. We're either going to become a giant melting pot where everybody just mixes in together, besides the nationality stuff, culturally everything. Like just there's no more differentiation between anything. No more cultures have their own foods, no more cultures have their own attire, apparel, things that, they uniquely wear in their country that they brought to America. No more cultures have their own, language. We just all speak one and cultures don't have any other things that contribute to the culture of that nation and that those people in America anymore, because everything will just all be blended in. And that includes religion too. That would include, there won't be any more differentiation between whether you're Catholic or other type of Christian or Muslim or Jewish or Hindu or any other religion, because in America, it'll all just be one religion, which would be atheism, which is where nobody believes in God and nobody believes in, any particular religion or traditional things that we do under the guise of religion. Or we're going to back to a nation where we are a declared one religion, one culture, one identity, and that would be the Christian religion. and that would be Christianity, Americanism, which is rooted in Christianity from its founding and even before. And that is, I think, what this is about. I think it's the resurgence of Christianity, wholesomeness, the American identity is battling this other thing that's trying to be like this one world government, globalistic, one nation for the entire world, one culture, one people, we're all just one, which is sold sort of as this like utopian kumbaya of, we're one, there's no more things that make us different anymore, so we have no reason to hate each other or fight each other. Now, you know, look throughout history and you can see that that doesn't matter. It's irrelevant. People will always fight each other and have differences because people are uniquely made in God's image. We are all different in our own ways. And you can see this throughout history when different cultures of people fought themselves without even venturing out into other parts of the world and going and finding other cultures. They fought themselves. You could see this back to ancient times. The Egyptians killed and mummified their own people, even though they were all Egyptian because of whatever, you know, wrongdoing they did at that time. They didn't care that they were one culture, they spoke one language. They all looked pretty much the same and you dressed the same and, did all kinds of cultural things the same. It didn't matter. They killed each other, right? You can look at this, throughout every other part of history. You can look at it, in the Middle East right now, where cultures, fight each other in that region that are different, but they also fight themselves. You could see that, even in America right now, there's so many different, like it goes down to the neighborhood where you could look at your neighborhood as superior to someone else's neighborhood, even though you live in the exact same geographical location throughout the country, throughout the world, really. You're in America, first of all. Then you're in, New York, then you're in specifically in New York City, then you're in, Manhattan, and you go all the way down to, are you in the Upper East Side or the Upper West Side? Are you in, Soho or the Wall Street area? Whatever it is, you're going to look differently at people. And Manhattan might be a bad example because people are culturally different there. But, you could take any location throughout the country. You could take a small town in, Pennsylvania, Ohio, or anything where, the people in one neighborhood are, either envious or they're gossipy or whatever about someone the next neighborhood over or even the next block, the next street over, because they have a minor difference and they will judge them on that thing and they will treat them differently or treat them like, you're an acquaintance, but the people who live on this block, these are my neighbors, these are my friends, you're not part of this, you're not part of us. So people do this all throughout history. They do it in the present day, and it doesn't matter where you are in the world, everybody's like this. So that whole concept of like a one world, kumbaya utopia where we're all one and we'll have no differences is never going to be a reality. And I said this in the past on this channel. There'll never be a time where there are no wars because the Bible doesn't say that. The Bible doesn't explain it as, going forward into the future or even the past. Um, there will ever be a time where there's no wars, there's no fighting in this life, on this earth, because that's not the nature of where we live and how we live. This is a fallen environment. It's not heaven. So this utopia concept will never work. And people are still trying to like believe and buy into this. And you see this with a lot of the younger generation that are very into like socialism, communism, where they're being sold on this idea that we could all, make the exact same amount of money and nobody struggles anymore and everybody's, maybe not rich, but none of us are poor, and we all get to live the exact same quality of life. And it's just not a reality and never will be because you're going to live the life that you earn and deserve, especially in America where you have the freedom to do that. Other countries it might be a little bit more difficult and harder because you're in a class system. But in America, everybody has the right to live the life they want. You could have started at the absolute bottom of the barrel. You could be poor and grow up in, government housing, or you could be homeless altogether and living on the street. and you could become a CEO of a Fortune 500 company someday, or you could, start a business and build it into a multi-billion dollar empire. There's so many different things that can happen. You could even come from outside of this country, in another country, a third world country, even get citizenship, come here, live here, go to our schools here, an education here, and then learn and figure out how to rise up to the top and have all the beauty and the benefits of the American dream without even actually having to have been born here. So, you know, that's really on you as the individual. What you're willing to do, how hard you're willing to work, what things you're going to try and accomplish along the way, and who you're going to connect with and network and meet to be able to achieve those goals and become the person you want to be and live the life you want to live. But that's not, it's never going to work where the communism thing works because it hasn't worked ever in history and it's been tried a lot and it just doesn't work because it's not a reality, but also because it doesn't align with God. It doesn't align with, scripture teaches us. It doesn't align with, the way that God teaches us about how he handles his people, how he handles the world, how he judges. That doesn't line up with anything, biblical, or even just in reality where there's this utopia because that's not reality. In fact, it's actually evil. It actually goes against God's, natural order for us. The country's sort of being split between two identities, two cultural ways. Are we either headed towards a time where, we go back to being Christians, go back to, the American dream, the heart of this nation being, the center being God, and, families thriving again, people really having things that we've lost along the way, honor, integrity, hard work ethic, generosity, helping others, being charitable, not just, sending out checks to, the local, whatever, but actually going and being involved and helping people and getting involved in the community. And also too, like, communication, getting back to, uh, you know, m- talking with people in person again, meeting people in person, building relationships with people in person in the physical, not just online in this digital realm. You look at it's sort of like an epidemic today where there are so many millennial moms that are in that like 30s to 40s age bracket where they claim all over the internet that they're having such a hard time making friends with other moms like our parents did when we were younger. All of our parents had friends, and they didn't know them their whole life. Many of them they met because they had children, and the children they brought the children out in the world, and they happened to, meet another mom who had a kid around the same age as their kid, and then all of a sudden, before you know it, 20 years goes by and they're still friends and they still talk and the kids are all grown and moved out of the house. This came a lot easier to the older generations because they didn't have social media. Social media has really ruined a lot of the younger generations, especially the millennials right now that are right in that middle age area of their 30s and 40s, where, like I said, it's like an epidemic. Women are having a real hard time with this. But then at the same time, they're at the park, scrolling through social media while their kid's on the slide. And there's another kid right next to him, their son playing, and that's the mom of that kid is sitting right next to you on the bench, and neither of you are talking, you're on the phone scrolling. So, you have to wonder why you're having a hard time making friends. That's why. Because you're not out in the world trying to talk to people, or you've let social media instill such fear in you that you've become sort of like a shell of yourself because you're so petrified of all these things out in the world that social media is telling you, this is lurking around the corner, that's lurking around the corner. Don't talk to strangers in public because they might want to like kill you and your family, and it's like all these crazy things that is keeping you from living a life, being free, being happy, making friends. But um, you know, people keep falling in that trap of not being able to get out of it and just being in this perpetual cycle, but then complaining about it. So it's kind of unusual. But social media is a bit of a different topic. We'll talk about that more again in the future, which we have a lot in the past. But now we'll just take a quick look at the ratings from the Super Bowl for yesterday, and I want to compare it to one other very notable time in Super Bowl history. And we'll just take a look at the differences in the ratings and what's going on. And that plays into a little bit of the culture and where we are headed and sort of this theory I have that we're on two paths, a crossroads to two paths right now. We're either going to head down this one path where, we all try to become this melting pot and lose all of our culture and identity in America for the sake of everybody, being in this utopia and getting along, even if it's artificial and forced, or we're going to go back to being a Christian nation. And I think the culture is split for sure, but there is a large portion of the culture that's definitely being pulled back to the wholesome way this country used to be. So we'll take a look at the ratings now, and then we'll get into a little bit more about that. So these are the ratings for the Super Bowl over the last several decades that it's been on. You can see here, this one right here for Michael Jackson. He did the halftime show back in 1989. So not like super long ago, but definitely a few decades ago. And the viewership was 133 million, which is about the same for what it was in 2026. But the difference is the population was only 247 million versus the 344 or 5 million that it is today. So that actually makes the viewership like 54% of the entire country. So if you think about this in context, it's 54% of the entire country was watching Michael Jackson perform the Super Bowl halftime show. Now think about that. That's more than half the country, which means the majority of the country had seen Michael Jackson perform the halftime show during that game. And if you look, it really was about the halftime show because the ratings for the actual game itself were only about 45 million, but it spiked up so that people could tune in to see Michael Jackson perform the halftime show. And at that time, he was a huge act, very big back in the 80s and 90s. So now when you look at today, you'll see the Bad Bunny one was 135 million people. And you say, all right, well, it's 2 million more than Michael Jackson, which is pretty good. Yeah, but you have to take into context the population again. So this time it's 344 million, which is almost 100 million, like to the dot, more than it was just 30 some odd years ago. So if you do the math on that, that's less than 40% of the entire United States population. Really, when you look at this, you have a decline of almost 15%. So we've already established that the population decrease for viewership for the overall watching the Super Bowl halftime show has gone down by at least 15%, at the most, maybe rather, right now. And since just the 80s, since just actually really almost the 90s, it was 89 when Michael Jackson did his halftime show. And you sort of see that happening all across the board. You see this consistent pattern of people losing interest in things that are not wholesome, things that are inappropriate, things that are not coming from a good place, coming from a place of promoting America, promoting God, promoting Christianity, promoting family values, and so on and so forth. You see a lot of the culture and people in America that are for those things rebelling against things that are against those things. And we just witnessed this with the Turning Point USA halftime show. They had their halftime show. It wasn't anybody, at the level of a Michael Jackson, but there were some big players there. I believe Kid Rock, a couple of other country singers had performed the halftime show for the Turning Point USA one, and they just live streamed it. And I believe the live stream got anywhere between 5 and 6 million, consistent viewers. So that is a very large viewership for a live stream internet event because the internet's not like cable TV where it's, very, very narrow. You have cable channels. There's, X amount of cable channels. The major ones are the ones everybody knows: Fox, NBC, CBS, ABC, and those are long-standing. They've been around for 100 years each, most of them at least. And the public has grown accustomed to those channels, and that's where a lot of the football games are played on. On the internet, it's harder to get a viewership of that size because there's so many things to watch on the internet. To capture 5 or 6 million people's attention at the same time, not watching a video online like Mr. Beast might put out a video and it gets like, 100 million views or something in a few days. This was 5 to 6 million consistent viewers watching at that very moment at the peak. And so to get that many people to tune into something online at the same time is very rare. I think this actually put their video in like the top 10 or top 20 for viewership of a live stream of all time on YouTube, which has been around for over 15 years now. So why did that happen? Because the culture is turning away from things that are not in line with what's happening in America now, in line with, being happy about America, being grateful for this country. But now going even further than that, so now you have the viewership is, leaving, and this has been going on for a few years now with some of the things the NFL has done over the last, 5 years, has driven a lot of their audience away from even just watching the sport in general because people were getting sick of a lot of the politics that was being pushed on them through the sports. The sports is where people went to go escape the politics, to go escape the everyday, stuff that, all the heavy stuff of life. They watch football to be entertained. They don't want to have a hidden agenda or a message or some political thing, woven into that. And it's the same thing with the halftime shows. It's really more about the agenda behind it that's driving people away. And that's why you saw 5 to 6 million, recurring, consistent viewers watching the Turning Point USA halftime show. But now we're going to go a step further. We're going to take a look at some other areas of the entertainment landscape. And we're going to see that this recurring theme of the culture in America being split and people looking to go back to wholesome things and get away from stuff that is not only not wholesome, but like, you know, inappropriate or has some annoying hidden agenda, yeah, and stuff like that. It's driving people away, and they're looking to go back in every aspect of entertainment, not just sports and the halftime show, but to go back to a place where we can find good wholesome stuff again, stuff that promotes family values, stuff that isn't too political, stuff that is cleaner and nicer and not all about, depravity and just the worst part of society. So you see this with other areas in the entertainment landscape, not just with, sports being the Super Bowl and the halftime show. You're even seeing it now with a lot of the movies and TV shows and the music industry and, even stand-up comedy and things like that. And you can view this by looking at a couple of different things. You look at the recent movie put out by Angel Studios, the movie David. Now it's an animated movie, so there is that factor of a lot of parents might take their children to see it, and this was always a big thing with kids movies tend to do really well because even if the movie is not great, if you could take your kid to it, it gives you a chance to get them out of the house and go see a movie and kill a few hours. Parents tend to do it. So ticket sales tend to be, big for kids movies, but this is an independent studio, Angel Studios, that put out a, animated movie that literally rivaled Disney with this one movie. It grossed, I think it was like 20 something million at the box office opening weekend, and then went on to do 80 million overall so far. I think it might still be out there, but 80 million, just shy of 100 million is massive. I mean, that's a good amount of money for a, big studio to do. But for an independent movie studio that's not part of the Hollywood, movie studios, So you do see this with the Angel Studios movie David, which was a great movie, by the way. It was an excellent movie, and it definitely rivaled Disney in terms of, quality, but in terms of the whole theme and style of it. They had the musical aspect, the animation was great, the story was great, the, characters, all of it really, came together and brought a biblical thing to the modern day and made it fun and enjoyable for the children. Even my child liked it. From a, personal standpoint, it was a good movie. But you have this with other stuff that they've done too. They did a war movie recently. It ended up getting great reviews, did really well. And then you have other apps also. You have apps for, children like Minnow. You have other, apps that have been around a little bit longer that have a lot of like Christian and family oriented content on there, like PureFlix and many other platforms in the entertainment digital media space. But you also have this with a lot of music too. You have for a while the music industry was very focused on rap and hip hop and pop music and things like that. And over the last 10, 15 years, we've seen an explosion of, mainstream country music, which is a lot different than the country of the past. Some people would say it really isn't country. It's more pop, but with like a country spin on it, which they've popularized bringing back music that appeals to middle America, your average American. But you also have Christian music that it has exploded over the last couple of, decades, a decade plus of a lot of Christian artists that have, I think, even won Grammys, many of them. And their music has, record sales have done really well. They've, exceeded in many cases, many pop artists and pop songs. So there's an explosion of that as well. Good, wholesome music. But you even see this in the comedy space. The two top comedians right now that have the highest ticket sales that, beat out any other comedian in terms of ticket sales and gross, revenue producing from the ticket sales are the two cleanest comedians that are out right now, which are Nate Bargatze and Sebastian Maniscalco. You have two clean, pretty much clean, family-oriented comedians that don't really curse in their bits. They don't really talk dirty or have any inappropriate jokes. It's, their audience is filled with all different types of people, different ages, from, elderly down to, young children who come with their parents to see the show because the comedy's clean. It's not promoting anything too inappropriate that you could have children there. And I've been to a Sebastian Maniscalco show, for example, and the places that the ones that we've been to were packed. I mean, from the front to the back, standing room. I mean, there was, so many people there to see him perform because he is funny, but also his comedy's clean. And so my point is you're seeing this all across the board where whether it's in sports, whether it's in, film, TV shows, music, even comedy like we just mentioned, all across the board, more and more you're seeing the culture in America pull back to wholesomeness, pull the nation back to, or at least showing that there is a huge demand for wanting clean content, wanting things to be wholesome again, wanting things to be pro-America, not anti-America, wanting things to be pro, positivity and just, i- having a good time enjoying yourself, but don't have to bring everybody down with you to do that. There's two different types of people in this regard. There's people who like to give you a helping hand and pull you up because you joining them at their level makes them feel better because now they have company. And then there's also the opposite, people who like to pull people down to their level so they have company because it's easier for them to bring you down than to bring themselves up. And so that's another good analogy as to what's happening in this country today is where you have two different types of people. You have people that want to, bring people over to this other side and say, "Hey, come join us in this new, reviving America's heart and core of goodness, wholesomeness, families, values." our Christian faith and God himself in the center of this nation. And then there's those people that wanna destroy everything. They're the ones that are going out and rioting and doing all these crazy protests or acting out every time something happens on the news, and they go and they take, revenge. That's really what's happening in this country overall. It's just a divide culturally, and it's where are we gonna go? Are we going down the path of this, destruction and chaos and either everything has to be perfectly equal and fair for everybody, we're gonna burn it down, or are we going this other way where we say, "No, we want wholesomeness back. We want, the good back in this country, and we want even the people that we disagree with to come with us so that they can also enjoy that new, that revived America again." But there's a battle because the bad side doesn't want the good side to even be a part of them, let alone do they want them to have their way. But the good side, that's on behalf of God, wants even the bad people to join them in happiness and peace. And so that's what I see as the main reason why there was so much backlash. It's not because somebody was singing in a different language or, maybe even singing a style of music like pop or R&B or whatever. It was more that the audience felt their agenda was being forced down their throat and that they didn't want and they didn't ask for. And also this desire for people in this country who care about this to want things to go back to wholesomeness again. And you can see this over the years. People were losing interest in these halftime shows because every artist who has performed has been some sort of pop artist or rap artist or somebody who is doing a type of style of music that the people in this nation that want wholesomeness again are just not interested in because it's not the wholesomeness is not there in that style of art. So I think if you were to start seeing, people perform, maybe like a country artist or a Christian artist or somebody like that perform a halftime show, you might see the ratings go sky high again, and it'll validate this desire for people to want wholesomeness back again. And you even saw this in something so little and insignificant in the grand scheme of the overall Super Bowl, but you saw this a couple of years ago in when Chris Stapleton performed the um, national anthem for the 2023, I believe it was, Super Bowl. His performance was so unbelievable. People have rated it among the top one or two of all time to ever perform the national anthem at the Super Bowl in the United States, and he's neck and neck, I think, with Whitney Houston, and, you you know, that was, such a pivotal thing, and also it exploded a bunch of, like, reaction videos online too. I mean, you could literally look up there's probably more views for Chris Stapleton reaction videos than there are views for the actual Chris Stapleton performing the national anthem at the Super Bowl. That's how much people really like that. And why? Because it was wholesome, because the way he performed it, it was beautiful, but it was also, there was like a little bit of America sneaking back in to the Super Bowl again, because the way he sings, his style of performance is very like bluesy, and country, and that whole vibe of stuff that was founded and started in America. Country music, blues, all that stuff was started in America. So you have this like this little spark of resurgence of that Americanism again at the Super Bowl by his performance of the national anthem. So that's another example of something like that that happened at the Super Bowl that you could see people want this again. So that's the theory. It wasn't really so much about the backlash being that he was, from another country, Puerto Rico, or that he was singing a different language. I don't think Americans care that much about that stuff. I think it's more about the identity politics. I think it's more about the agenda being forced. But also, I think it's about people just want wholesomeness back again. People want wholesomeness back in this country again, and they're showing that they're tired of everything that's not wholesome by going and spending their money and giving their attention to things that are. So, just a little bit of a different take overall, big picture on this whole situation, and not caught up so much in the fact that the guy is from another country or sings in a different language or wears dresses apparently, but instead more it's about the wholesomeness in this country again, and the demand for people who want to see wholesomeness be brought back to this nation in every aspect of entertainment and our daily lives. Well, that's pretty much it for this video. That is the concept and the theory that I'm running with. Don't forget to like, follow, subscribe, share, all that good stuff. And don't forget to stay for the ad at the end of the video, see different ways that you can support the channel, and put in the comments, you know, things that you want to see discussed on here, different topics, or if it's a specific event or something. And then also different people you'd like to see us try and interview on the channel because we're going to be doing that this year. So, put all that there and we'd love to hear what you have to say so we can try and, put the content out there that you are interested in. As long as it aligns with the channel, we're happy to do it. But that's it for this video. Stay tuned for the next one.
All right, everybody, I just want to take a moment to promote my children's book. This is Little Boy Full of Love. That's me on the back. And this is a little sneak peek on the inside. It's a great book. It's a children's book. I actually wrote this for my son. And it's available right now on Amazon, Walmart, Barnes & Noble, Indigo, Bookshop.org, and a lot of other online platforms. But more importantly to me, it's actually available in a lot of bookstores throughout the country. You can find out which ones are closest to you on my Instagram page. We highly recommend that you shop local, buy from a local bookstore. So if you are looking to, get a children's book for you or anybody you know, or even with the holidays coming up, it's a great time to, buy a children's book as a gift. Definitely get it from a bookstore that's local to you. But if you absolutely can't get it from one of the bookstores that are currently carrying it right now, and we're in about 15 or 16 different states across the country, so it may actually be in your state and it could even be local to you. But if you can't get it from the physical bookstore, check out our Amazon storefront. The book's available on there right now. And like I said, with the holidays coming up, you may want to do your Christmas or Hanukkah or holiday shopping early, and you can even order it from our Amazon storefront and ship it directly to whoever you're gifting it to. But it's available on those platforms, Amazon storefront and bookstores and other websites that I mentioned. But I want to take a moment here to look at the storefront just to give you an idea of some other stuff that we have available on there. These are products that we highly recommend. They are things that we use in our daily lives, and it's all organized by category. So it's a lot easier to, shop for the holidays and specifically for things that interest you, particular categories. Available right now, many different items on our storefront. If you can see here, 61 items just in women's apparel, fall decor, because right now we're in fall, 26 items, kitchen items, baking specifically, things for around the house, children's toys, even stuff for parties. If you're trying to save money on a party and throwing your own, occasion, you can even buy some cool gadgets here to help you, put on a better party. Health and wellness items here, even stuff for Christmas. And there's the book right there. So you can get it from the storefront. You can get it from the bookstores, like I mentioned. But it's available on all these different platforms. It's really easy to find and gift to somebody. Also, I want to show you the apparel shop, and these are some clothing items that we actually produced. So if you're looking to get some cool apparel items, shirts, hoodies, long sleeve, short sleeve, leggings, even accessories, cell phone cases, women's makeup bags, fanny packs, coffee mugs, all different types of stuff, even some, art, all different categories here, apparel, homeware, accessories, drinks, even digital items. It's all on this store, healthybodygoodssoul.com. anything that pertains to you or somebody that you're looking to get a gift for the holidays. A lot of great designs on here, a lot of cool designs that we actually custom created. Stainless steel water bottles, especially now with the fall and winter. A lot of cool hoodies and long sleeve shirts. This is a really cool one, I think, for women. The original Be Your Soul apparel, that one's actually really popular. People tend to like that. This one's one of my favorites. The free shirt. It's the American flag and it says free and that says not property of the United States government. That one's pretty cool. Got all different types of tank tops, hoodies, long sleeve, short sleeve, tote bags, coffee mugs, even some items for kids, backpacks. So if you're the type that likes to, plan ahead, I would definitely recommend ordering from the Amazon storefront or the apparel shop within the next couple of weeks to get everything in time for the holidays. Use code SAVE15 on the apparel shop to save 15% off everything on the storefront. So order within the next week or two and you'll definitely have everything in time for the holidays. Definitely check out all the links to everything, the Amazon storefront, the book, and the apparel shop in my bio on all my platforms: Rumble, YouTube, Instagram, Spotify. But you can also find them in all the show notes for every episode that I post and get all your orders in time for the holidays. All right, that's it for this video. Don't forget to like, follow, subscribe, share, all that good stuff. It helps the channel continue to grow. And put in the comments things that you would like me to talk about and make videos on for the future. And I will definitely do my best to do that. Stay tuned for the next one.